The imaging module is very flexible, it's extensible, it's based on a concept of configurable generators, image operations, and image operation chains. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a sec. And the imaging module is very well integrated into Magnolia's standard templating kit, the STK, via the STK generator, which works in conjunction with the STK themes, where you can then configure your image variations in the theme configuration for your websites. So here's a kind of a overview architectural block diagram, not 100% precise. It's just meant to give you an overview of how the imaging module works, which components it consists of. And so you see the central component is the imaging servlet. The imaging servlet reacts to incoming requests where the URL, the URL path begins with .imaging. So URLs that start with .imaging will hit the imaging servlet and will then be processed by the imaging module. The imaging servlet directly makes use of something called an image streamer. The image streamer basically takes pixel data, converts it back into an image file format, and streams it out in the response to the requesting client browser. And it also handles the caching of the images, as mentioned before. And the imaging servlet also uses the so-called generators. Multiple generators can be configured for Magnolia's imaging module. The second part of the URL, the second path component, is interpreted by the imaging servlet to be the name of the generator that should be used to generate the image variation. So in this little example, the second part is G, and that would trigger a generator G, which does the actual work of generating the variations. How does it do that? It in turn makes use of two components, that is a parameter provider via parameter provider factory. The parameter provider exists basically to parse the rest of the URL and identify what the generator should do based on that, maybe load a source image or something like that. And the generator then makes use of an image operation chain. That's a chain of individual image operations, each of which acts on an in-memory pixel buffer. So for example, the first operation might be a load operation, which loads a source image into the pixel buffer. Then there might be a resize operation to change the size of that image to a specified variation size. And finally, there might be other operations which, might render a copyright notice into the image pixels or do other things to the image. And finally, when the image operation chain completes, it returns that pixel buffer to the image streamer, which then makes it into a JPEG or PNG formatted image file and sends it out in the response to the client. The imaging cache is, of course, like everything, stored in JCR in Magnolia, and there's a special workspace for that called the imaging workspace. So that's like a high-level overview of how the imaging module works. And now I'll get into our extensions to Magnolia's imaging module. So the imaging module itself is provided by Magnolia. It used to be part of the Enterprise Edition only, and recently it's also become part of the Community Edition. So for those of you who haven't looked at it, it's a really great module, saves your editors a lot of work. I'd recommend checking it out. So our extensions to the imaging module, I think we're probably not going to have time to cover them all in detail, so I might skip over the last ones a bit and just demo them for you. But we have 4 extensions we want to talk about today, and I'll just get right into that. The first one is a simple one. It's our so-called captcha module. And it exists to generate captcha images via Magnolia's imaging system. I'm sure you all know what captcha images are. It's when you fill out a web form and you get those pictures of words and letters and you ask to re-enter the words and letters you see into the web form. And it's basically a system that's used to differentiate humans and robots when web forms are submitted in web pages. So our captcha module uses an open source Java library called JCapture. Anyone can download it from SourceForge. It's a great library, works very well, very feature complete. And our job was really to integrate that library into Magnolia's imaging in a highly configurable way. Couple words about JCapture itself. It's pure Java captcha-image generation. So you can use that under Windows, Solaris, Linux, whatever you're running Magnolia on. There's no dependencies to external libraries. It's all done in Java. You just need to drop the jar into Tomcat and it's ready to go. It's very, very flexibly configurable. It's crazy what you can do. There's word generators, font generators, image deformations, and you can compose all those things to configure very different captcha engines to basically produce captchas that are very complicated or have certain look and feels based on the colors and the fonts that are used. And it provides a very simple API called a captcha service, which basically encapsulates all this. It stores the generated captchas for verification later. You can control the time to live and how many get stored, and it provides very simple methods to generate or verify the captcha images after the user has entered them into the form. So that's JCapture. And we integrated that into Magnolia in our captcha module. So we use the standard content to bean mechanism in Magnolia to handle the configuration. We decided we'd make it possible to configure multiple captcha engines because Magnolia's Enterprise Edition customers, they might be running multiple websites in their Magnolia installation. The different websites might have different requirements for the captchas. Maybe they need different lengths, different security requirements, or maybe, they want a different look and feel for the captchas so that the pictures generated are better integrated into the website designs. So we decided to make multiple captcha engines configurable. And we exposed many, but not all of JCapture's possible configuration options. And you can see a little screenshot here on the right-hand side. This is just a screenshot from Magnolia's config workspace. And you can see this is the config node for our captcha module. And we've got the captcha engines here. And here's a node default. So that would be the name of the default captcha engine that gets installed with our module. And you can see it's cut off here at the bottom. In fact, there's really a lot of configuration options to configure the font, to configure image deformations, and things like that. So that's the integration in Magnolia for the module. How did we make that work together with the imaging module of Magnolia? Basically, we created a new generator, the captcha generator, which works together with a custom parameter provider, which handles URLs of the form .imaging captcha, that's the name of our generator. Then the captcha engine name, so that would be default, for example, if we use the engine we saw in the previous slide. And finally, the captcha ID. That's just a string that serves as an ID for the captcha. And that ID is used then to match the user input against the generated picture. So the custom parameter provider has a custom parameter provider factory, which also disables the caching of the capture images in Magnolia, because of course capture images are used only once, so there's no reason to fill your imaging workspace with cached capture images that never get used again. And finally, we have a custom image operation which loads the capture image via the JCapture capture service and basically just returns that in an in-memory buffer for use or for further processing by the imaging module. So how might you use this in your templates? Of course, you need a template with a web form in it that displays the capture image and provides an input field for entering the text that the user thinks he sees in that image. And you also have to provide a hidden field in that form which contains the ID for the capture. And you can see in this little sample code, we actually do all that client side in JavaScript. We generate the capture ID in JavaScript, and then we dynamically include the form fields via JavaScript and write that capture ID and the imaging URL dynamically into the form via JavaScript. You may ask, why do we use JavaScript for this? We didn't have to. We could have generated the ID server side, of course, but we thought this is the better way to do it, because in this way, at least when the web form is first requested, it remains cacheable by Magnolia because there's no IDs in the generated HTML. So in conjunction with your web form template, you'd of course then need a page which receives the form submission. And that page would typically in Magnolia make use of a so-called model class, which does the processing of the form in Java. So you'd of course want to verify the capture in your model class, and that's really easy to do. So in your model class's execute method, you might call something like check-capture, and then the check-capture method would basically just, verify the input fields. Did the user provide the capture text? Is there a capture ID that came with the form? And if that's all okay, it would call our capture module and just call verify capture, passing in the capture service name, so default, for example, the capture ID and the capture text, and that'll simply return true, false, if it can verify the capture or not. So really, really simple to use. I don't think it's necessary to demo this. I think you all know what captures are. So to conclude on the capture module, we've got it working in production. It's working well. I think it's a good example of Magnolia's openness and extensibility. It was really very straightforward to integrate this into Magnolia's imaging. Of course, there is room for improvement. We could still expose more configuration options. And the one thing we don't have a solution for yet is generating audio captures, which are required for websites that need to provide accessibility for visually impaired persons. So we don't have the audio capture working yet, so that's something we could improve in the future. Next, I'm going to talk about our imaging PDF module. The imaging PDF module we find is a very useful module for our editors. What it basically does is make image variations, the SDK image variations, in fact, work together with PDF documents. So maybe the best way to show you this is just to start with a demo of that in action. Okay, you're already mirrored, I think. So here you see our customer's principal website, the Lebensministerium.at website of the Austrian Ministry of Agriculture. And we've got an area in that website called the Publications area. The Ministry of Agriculture and its associated organizations and departments, they have a lot of publications. I think we've got on the order of, well, many hundred, maybe thousands of publications in the publication section of the website. And each publication is associated with a web page where you can see the description of that publication and find out a bit about it. And then in most of the cases, you can download the publication in PDF format right from that website. So to create this area of the site, the editors have to create hundreds of pages, one for each publication, and then upload the PDFs for those publications and provide some information about them using Magnolia's dialogues. And I think as you might have seen, just browsing around the website right now, there's a number of different images that are involved. So there's list views with thumbnails. If you hover above one of the thumbnails, you get a slightly larger view. If you go into the publication itself, then you get an even larger view, and if you hover above the publication there, you get a giant view. These are all preview images of that publication to make the website look better and to give the user an idea of what he might be downloading if he downloads that publication. So you can see that the editors, to create this part of the website, they would normally have to create the page, input the information, upload the PDF that's linked to that publication, and then they'd also have to open the PDF on their desktop PC, maybe make a screenshot of the first page, maybe resize that screenshot, then upload the screenshot to Magnolia, and then tell Magnolia that that specific screenshot should be used with that publication. So we thought, given that there's thousands of publications, that's quite a lot of work for our editors. Our editors aren't all computer experts, so in fact for some of them, taking a screenshot and then saving that as a JPEG and resizing it and so on is already quite a difficult thing for them to do. And so we thought, how can we make their life easier? Well, their life would be a lot easier if they didn't have to make those screenshots, if they could just use the PDFs that they have to upload anyway as a source for all these preview images that are needed by the website. So that's in fact what we did, and that's what our imaging PDF module does. Excuse me one moment. So that's what our imaging PDF module does. It allows you to use the SDK's image variations with PDF documents as the source. So again, we used an open source library to get this feature up and running. We used the JPedal library. You can download that from jpedal.org. Again, it's pure Java, PDF to image conversion, and it works with really the vast majority of PDF documents. You might find an occasional document, maybe that's password protected or something like that, that JPedal can't open, but really those cases are very few. It works very well. And how did we make that work? Well, again, we have a custom image operation for loading images out of PDF documents. It extends the standard operation that Magnolia provides. It's called from node data. So the standard operation loads image formats, and we extended that by overriding certain methods to check for PDF documents, and if the source document is PDF, we load it via JPedal, and if it's not, if it's a normal image, then we just defer to the superclass to handle it in the normal way. We have another component that plays a role in this, and that's so-called output format. That's another class involved in Magnolia's imaging module. Normally, the imaging module will maintain the same format for image variations it generates. So if your source is a PNG, then the output variation will be a PNG. But of course, for PDFs, that's no good. We want, when PDF is the source, we want to have PNG as the resulting output image format. So that's what our output format does. And to get that running in Magnolia, we basically modified the configuration for the STK generator to use our custom output format. And then to configure the PDF loading, we do that directly in the theme configuration for the variations. So you can see a little screenshot here again. This is a variation we call PDF thumb large, and you can see there's an image operation chain configured right in that variation with a load operation that's specified to use our from node data with PDF class, and then there's a resize operation on the resulting image. So that's how we integrated that into Magnolia's imaging. To conclude, it's working well in production. What you saw before in the demo was the live site of the Ministry of Agriculture, and all those sort of preview images you saw were all generated via JPedal export from PDF documents. So the next module I'm going to talk about is our image metadata module. So again, a little bit about the use case for this module. The Ministry of Agriculture and its associated organizations, they host a lot of events, they go to a lot of events, the leading officials, the minister himself, of course, goes to a lot of events in different countries and within Austria. And they take photographers with them, and those photographers take pictures at the events, often more than 100 for a single event. And those pictures need to be published to the Ministry of Agriculture's website. They get published in a specific section of the website. We call it the photo service section. And literally we've got thousands of images in the photo service, and it grows by hundreds of images each month. And maybe we'll give you just a quick look at what the photo service looks like. So here we're going to go into the photo service on our authoring system. And you can see there's a lot of photo categories. There's galleries and detail views of the images. You get, again, different thumbnail sizes, of course. And the important thing to note, if you go into a detail view for an image, then you can see there's quite a bit of metadata that gets displayed along with the image. That might be information about the location. Where was this picture taken? It might be a title for the picture. It might be a description for the picture. It might be attribution information, copyright information. And very importantly, of course, to satisfy accessibility requirements, each picture needs an alt tag so that visually impaired people get a textual description of that picture, right? So for each of the thousands of images that we have in the photo service, there's all this metadata that needs to be maintained. So again, we were looking for a way to make this easy for our editors to do, because as you can imagine, uploading hundreds of pictures per month and then handling each individual picture in terms of the metadata and adding the metadata to each of those pictures individually, that would be a lot of work. So as it turns out, each picture needs all this metadata, and managing it manually is simply not practical. And as it turns out, in fact, the photographers, they already do most of the work, because when the photographers go home after the events and they process the images for the event, they already enter this information, the description, the copyright information, the location, etc. They enter this information right into the picture file using standardized metadata formats like EXIF, IPTC, and XMP. Those are all standardized formats which are used by both JPEG and PNG images, I think TIFF images also. And while EXIF, for example, holds mainly technical information that comes out of your camera, IPTC and XMP formats are user editable, and using tools like Photoshop, for example, you can go into the image information and you can enter that information like a description for the image, and Photoshop will save it into the image in IPTC and XMP formats. And so after the photographers do that, they've got their set of images from the event and they just upload them to Magnolia using Magnolia's zip upload feature into the DMS. And so we thought, well, you know, wouldn't it be a good idea if the image metadata module were to import all that metadata automatically, and then the editors wouldn't have to input it. So I think we're sort of running out of time here. So again, without going too much into the details, we'll just give you a quick demo of how that works in action. So here we're in Magnolia's backend. We're in an area we call the build catalog, the picture catalog. It's basically Magnolia's DMS. We just provided a different view onto Magnolia's DMS, which just shows the images. And we're going to upload an image file, a new image file into Magnolia's DMS. And you can see, in order to get this to work, we had to modify the DMS edit dialog. we had to turn it into a two-step dialogue. Why? Because the one-step dialogue, it wouldn't work for importing metadata. When you open the one-step dialog, you've got a file selector to choose the picture, and then you've got the fields to enter the metadata, and it's all in one dialog, and when you hit save, the picture gets uploaded and the metadata fields get saved. And so if you were to import metadata, at that point, you'd overwrite what the editor may have just entered into that dialog, right? So we had to turn that into a two-step dialog. And we're going to upload a picture now in the first step, and then you see in the second step that picture is already uploaded, and the metadata has already been entered, provided out of the picture. And then if we just go and save that, so we could now overwrite that metadata and maybe correct some spelling errors that the photographers made. When we save the picture, that metadata that was imported gets saved into Magnolia's JCR database in the normal way and is then available for use by your templates. So unfortunately, I don't think I really have time to get into the technical details of that. And instead, I'll spend another minute talking about our next module, which is the image metadata writer module. So this metadata writer module is basically the counterpart to the metadata module. And the metadata writer module writes image metadata that it reads out of Magnolia's JCR database into the image files itself. So it'll strip out any existing IPTC or XMP metadata that might be present in the image, and it will replace that with what's stored in Magnolia's JCR database. It writes it in IPTC format, and it uses the same configuration as the image metadata module. So basically this module closes the loop in conjunction with the image metadata module. The image metadata module will import the metadata out of the image file into Magnolia, and the metadata writer module will then export the Magnolia metadata back into the image file as the image file is downloaded. And that's integrated into Magnolia's imaging, so it's again based on the variations. And I'm afraid that's all we're going to have time for today on that module. You have a question?
Hi, it's me again. The big question is, of course, and probably you expected it, will these modules be available to the public in some form or other?
That's a very good question. It's basically, it's not my decision. I developed these modules for the companies we work for, and it's up to other people in those companies to decide if they get released or not. I'd be very much in favor to release them, yes.
Okay, thank you. Is it on? Yeah. Is the overriding of metadata, is it also possible in the bulk operation? So if I upload a zip file and, for instance, the photographer name is misspelled and I have to change all the images when uploading them, can I also override the metadata? You just showed that if you upload a single picture, you can change the metadata before storing it into Magnolia.
Yeah.
So can I also do this for bulk operation?
Okay, so we did integrate the metadata import into the zip upload. So if you upload images via the zip upload, then the metadata will be imported for each of those images.
Yeah.
But there's no way to do a bulk metadata change. So if there were a spelling error, you'd have to open each of those images in Magnolia individually at the moment, and then change each of those images individually.
Okay, so otherwise it's just back to Photoshop and do it there
It
instead
would
of.
probably be more efficient to use a batch program on the desktop and then upload them again via the zip upload. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.